The Sodor Railway Adventures, Episode 10, An Old Friend. Duncan had just got back from the works. He was excited. He felt like a brand new engine, and he was going on a good long run right before he headed off straight to work. Duncan was enjoying his good long run when Sir Topham Hatt stopped him at a nearby junction. "Duncan, I have a very important request for you. Can you go with Duck to work at the harbor? I've been doing some, let's say, improvements on our harbor since your wreck." Duncan didn't want to be reminded of the wreck he caused. "Yes, sir. I'll go straight to work. That's a good engine," he said, and Duncan chuffed away. When Duncan arrived at the harbor, he realized that Topham Hatt was right. Goodness gracious, this place is a mess. They really are doing improvements. Duck chuffed up right up to Duncan. "Oh, hello, Duncan. Finally got back from the works, I see." "Yes, I did. Sir Topham Hatt sent me here so I can work here with you." "All right, good. I need the extra help, especially all the help I can get." "Thank you." Duncan went straight off to work. Duncan didn't like being reminded of the time he crashed into the harbor, which was fairly recently, which was the reason he caused to go to the work. But the trucks wouldn't forget about it. They teased him all they could. "Look, it's Duncan. Be quiet," said Duncan. "It's the one who made the mess and the cause of all this renovation in the harbor in the first place." But Duck was long gone since then. Henry chuffed into the harbor to see Duncan and Duck working as hard as ever. "Goodness gracious," said Henry. "I've never seen loads this big before," and indeed Henry was right. Duck and Duncan had so much work to do that they decided to check all their trains at once. So the trains ended up being extremely long. "It is extremely tiring," said Duncan, "but it's all worth it. We have a lot of work to get done, so hopefully you'll understand." Henry looked as Duncan carried out with his long line of freight cars. "Goodness gracious, that's how long my daily goods train is. My goodness, they must be working really hard. I might confront Sir Topham Hatt on that and see what he thinks of this." And Henry puffed away. That night, on his way back to the sheds, Henry found Sir Topham Hatt. "Hello, Henry," said Sir Topham Hatt. "What brings you to me on this fine evening?" Sir Topham Hatt, sir," said Henry. "Duncan and Duck seem to have a lot of work. Duncan and Duck are pulling these extremely long trains that are pretty much just as long as my goods trains." "Indeed," said Sir Topham Hatt. They do have a lot of work ahead of them, especially since Duncan has to shunt freight cars and trains at the beginning of each morning." "Indeed," said Henry. "So, maybe they should get another engine or someone else to help them out." "Good idea," said Henry. "I'll go discuss with them on that." "Thank you, sir," said Henry. Henry was glad that he was helping his friends out. So he chuffed away back to the sheds, as well as Sir Topham Hatt following him. Sir Topham Hatt spoke with all the engines at the sheds. "It has come to my attention that Duck and Duncan seem to have a lot of work down at the harbor. So I recommend another engine, as Henry has suggested." "That's a good idea," said Duncan. "Thank you, sir," said Duck. "Indeed, as my treat. So I hope you enjoy with the new engine. I hope you will be able to work with them okay, and that your work will be a lot faster and a lot less tiring, so to speak." And Sir Topham Hatt drove away. "Hope that is the case," said Duncan, but before Duck could reply, he was already fast asleep. He had had a long day's work. The next morning, Duck arrived at the harbor like he usually did. Duncan was still out shunting the coaches for Gordon's Express, but then a familiar figure came into the harbor. "Hello," said Diesel. "Goodness gracious," said Duck. "Diesel, what are you doing here? Fancy to see me?" "I am your old friend, as you suppose." "No, not at all," said Duck. "I haven't had good experiences with you in the past, and besides, the island of Sodor hasn't seen you since you had that wreck with Edward at the harbor." "Indeed so," said Diesel. "I wonder why no one cared about my absence. Oh well, might as well get to work. Sir Topham Hatt sent me that there would be no troublemaking, or else this time I would never return to the island of Sodor. So this time there will be no trouble." Diesel oiled away. Duck doubted this and decided to disregard it. But this time, Diesel wouldn't shunt china clay into the sea like he did last time working at the harbor with Duck. When Duncan checked into the harbor, Diesel looked upon the engine, the very small engine for that. "Who are you?" said Diesel. "I've never seen such a little engine before. What are you doing in this part of the island? Shouldn't you be on, let's say, the narrow gauge part of the island?" "Actually, I should," said Duncan. "But there was this whole long accident, and long story short, now I'm on this line." "Oh, I see," said Diesel. "Well, that is quite the strange incident. Anyway, I should be off," said Duncan. "I have no time to chat. I have a lot of work. Duncan didn't quite know about Diesel and his suspicious acts. But when Duncan was chuffing out with all of his freight cars, Diesel looked upon him. "So, he thinks he's a big and strong goods train, I see. Well, this time, I don't think he's going to be pulling the flying caper anytime soon. I bet I can best him at strength. He's oiled away. When Duncan finally arrived from all of his deliveries, he arrived back at the harbor to find Henry and Duck, as well as Diesel. Diesel was doing something with the freight cars. He was shunting them into a place. So you think you're strong, Duncan, said Diesel. Well, I can prove to you that I'm being stronger. Oh no, said Henry. This isn't going to be another one of those world's strongest engines now, is it? Of course not, said Diesel. I've gotten over that. But he didn't want to be reminded of that, so he carried on and tried to get a lot more trucks. Duncan was confused. What does he mean by stronger than me? I know what he's thinking, said Duck. He saw the long line of freight cars and didn't understand how much work we have. So he thought that you were trying to prove that he was stronger than him. And being a diesel, he always wants to try to be superior than the steam engine. I can see that, but that is kind of ridiculous, said Duncan. It is, said Duck. He shunted more trucks together, and this time he made sure that the brakes on the trucks were absolutely 100% off. He put together even more freight cars, then shunted a few more before he decided that he had enough. Soon he had an enormous line of freight cars that stretched all the way across the harbor. Goodness gracious, said Henry. That is quite the big train. Indeed it is, said Diesel as he coupled up to the front of it, and I'm going to pull it. You ready to see? Heave ho, as they say, said Diesel. Indeed the brakes on the trucks were released, but Diesel didn't realize that the trucks were standing right on the express points. The trucks didn't realize this either, and neither did Diesel. Diesel, being the big and supposedly strong engine he was, slowly moved the trucks. Slowly but surely. He's actually doing it, said Henry. But unluckily for Diesel, he was able to roll the freight cars just over the last few set of points, and then he couldn't go any further, especially because Sir Topham Hatt stopped him. Sir Topham Hatt arrived at the site. Goodness gracious, what is this? Diesel, are you trying to prove that you're the world's strongest engine again? No, sir, said Diesel. I'm just trying to prove that I'm a lot stronger than Duncan, so to speak. Nonsense, said Sir Topham Hatt. Of course you are. Duncan is a narrow-gauge engine. Obviously not now, because he's not on the narrow-gauge line. But still, the point still stands. But look what you're doing. You're not making a fool of yourself by landing into a barge, but look, you're blocking the points. And just at that moment, Gordon arrived and came thundering in. Luckily, he was able to come to a stop just at the last minute. What is this? Said Gordon. There's this ginormous train in the way. And even on the other points, James is coming in, with Thomas, Annie, and Clarabelle. Goodness gracious, said James. What is this long line? Can this not be in the way? We have important trains to go, said Gordon. Move out of the way. I can't, said Diesel. He was trying to move, but he only moved a very little bit. The trucks were laughing and giggling. They weren't holding back, and as a matter of fact, they weren't doing anything. They were laughing and enjoying the moment, because they knew that they were far too heavy for Diesel to halt. We need somebody to pull this out of the way. Henry, can you do it? No, sir, said Henry. I have a goods train to do. Well, then who will pull it? We will, said Duck and Duncan. Are you sure you'll be able to pull it? Yes, sir, said the engines, and they puffed away to go to the front of the line. Diesel uncoupled from the train, and then the two new engines who were willing to pull the train jumped in front of it. Duck and Duncan decided to do it together. All right, all ready? Yep, said Duncan. Well, then let's go. And they pulled away with all their might. They slowly but surely pulled away out of the harbor. Topham Hatt was willing to give Diesel a second chance. As the engines pulled away, Diesel, I'm willing to give you a second chance. But this time, don't try to prove your strength to anybody. Yes, sir, said Diesel. The engines whistled at him and snickered a little bit. And then Diesel went away and deciding. He thought to himself, I'll get back at those two engines. They'll wait and see. Ha ha ha. Diesel rushed away.